In this video, we're going to talk about the direction of the angular momentum, and we're going to do it from a mathematical standpoint, okay? So maybe I ask you a question: what is the direction of the angular? What is the direction of the angular momentum of 0, 0, 3 crossed into 0, 4, 0? Well, we know the angular momentum is a cross product, right? And we know that whatever direction of the vector we're getting has to be perpendicular to both these other vectors, okay? So how do we determine which direction these two vectors cross? And how do we determine that? Well, remember we said the usual formula is some sort of I hat, j hat, k hat, yeah? Okay, and this is how we represent it, okay? So we don't care about numbers, we care about what direction. So if I'm looking at this, I usually like to draw two lines like this. I represent this as my x, this as my y, and I know z is coming out of the board like that. Okay, so we'll represent it like that. Now, we represent I hat usually with x, so we kind of, those are simultaneously together. And we know j hat is usually represented by y. And we also know that k hat, we know k hat is usually represented with z. Okay. Okay, so now we're just gonna do what we do and kind of explain what's going on. So by common sense, we know that if the vector of these two have to be perpendicular, then we know it's not going to be in any one of these. So what do I mean? Okay, well, we have k hat crossed into j hat, which means that we care about how much they do not point in the same direction. So that will always give me an I hat. Okay, it'll always give me an I hat. So it's always whatever it's not present. So if we have k hat and j hat, we cross those, we're going to get I hat. If we have I hat and k hat across those, we're going to get j hat. Okay, so it's always the one that's not there. And so we know that this is going to go in the, in this case, we cross k hat with the j hat. So we know we're going to get I hat. The idea is it negative or positive? And that's when we come back to the idea of clockwise and anti-clockwise. So we could assume that this is k hat. So we're crossing k hat into j hat. So if we cross k hat into j hat, I'm actually going this way. Okay. So I'm going clockwise, and we usually represent clockwise with a negative. So we know the direction of this would actually be negative x. Okay. So whenever you're going clockwise, whenever you're crossing those vectors clockwise, you're gonna get that negative sign. If I'm going anti-clockwise, like it's kind of like the unit circle. If we're going anti-clockwise, then we're gonna get that positive value. And so let's look at another one. So again, what is the vector of 0? What is the vector of 4? 0, 4, 0 crossed into 0, 0, 3. Well, again, if I draw this, then I know this is I hat. I know this is j hat, which is my y, and this is k hat, which is my z. Okay. So again, what am I crossing here? Again, we're crossing j hat into k hat. So we know by definition, if we're crossing j hat into k hat, we're always going to get I hat. It's always the one that's not there. That's going to be that's going to be the vector. Okay. The idea is whether it's positive or negative. Well, let's see. If we have j hat here, and we're crossing it into k hat, so we're going this way now. Well, if we're crossing j hat into k hat, we know it's going to be an I hat. In this case, the answer is actually going to be a positive I hat. Okay, so in this case, I'm gonna get a positive I hat, because again, I'm crossing j hat into k hat. Okay, we're crossing j hat into k hat, and again, now I'm going in an anti-clockwise direction, and so this is defined as positive. Okay. Now what about this one? What if we cross k hat now into k hat? Well, just always remember this. This is actually 0. Okay, so we care about how much they do not point in the same direction. And so anytime we cross the same vectors, this would, as a dot product, then we could say, okay, well, that's fine. But as a cross product, an angular momentum, direction of angular momentum is a cross product. We know that if we cross the same angle, if we cross the same components into each other, it's just going to be 0, okay? Because we care about how much they do not point in the same direction.